Hello. Let me start this lecture by saying trauma needs therapy beyond theater. It is, after all, such a sensitive and delicate topic, and it needs a full spectrum of treatment, such as professional therapy, proper medication, and even a change in lifestyle that may include athletic and/or creative activities. As an actor who has been studying and performing theater acting for the past 25 years and teaching it for the past 15, I find that theater allows individuals to deal with trauma and unpleasant emotions by providing a platform to rehearse a method for recovery. So this lecture is designed really to answer questions I'm usually asked as an actor by friends and non-theater colleagues. Questions such as, do you really have to be traumatized to be a good actor? Or why would actors want to remember such unpleasant experiences? And even, isn't just acting something you do? So let me proceed to Dr. Bessel van der Kolk's statement in his book. He asks, after you've experienced something so unspeakable, how do you learn to trust yourself or anyone else again? Right? He claims that trauma results in a fundamental reorganization of the way the mind and the brain manage perceptions. It changes how a traumatized person thinks. And so really recovery aims to reestablish ownership of the mind and the body. And so these are the 4 goalposts that a traumatized person aims to gain in his recovery process. 1 is to find a way to be calm and focused, to learn to maintain that calm response whenever he or she is triggered. 3, find a way to be fully alive and engaged in the present and to have no secrets from the self. And so theater allows this really, no? Because according to van der Kolk, acting is an experience of using your body to take your place in life. And as such, really, the challenge of recovery is pushing through the blockages that trauma creates and allowing you to discover your own truth. So he puts theater and trauma side by side. And, since traumatized people fear emotions because it leads to a loss of self-control, they feel God-forsaken and isolated. They would instead prefer to deny and hide their pain. Meanwhile, theater is about articulating those emotions in a collective manner in order to communicate it creatively to the audience, who will then share it as witnesses to the very intricate human condition that they are expressing. Now, this juxtaposition by van der Kolk shows us how theater provides a platform for healing. So theater, in essence, really activates agency, right? By activating the voice and giving voice to emotions. It explores this agency by collaborating with other artists throughout a well-thought-of rehearsal process that guarantees a safe space to explore a full variety of experiences, both pleasant and unpleasant. This, along with the witnessing of the audiences, forges a strong community. Of course, you don't just memorize a bunch of lines, jump on stage, and perform in front of a group of strangers. That is traumatic in and by itself. So theater artists have come up with ways, techniques, so to speak, in preparing to physicalize a performance and let acting happen the way Sanford Meisner defines it. According to Meisner, acting is living truthfully in imaginary circumstances. Meisner is one of my most favorite techniques. He teaches actors how to get out of their heads and refocus their attentions to their scene partners while allowing themselves to feel what they're feeling. 2 significant words in this definition is truthfully and imaginary. Being truthful here means without pretense, feeling the emotion present in the moment rather than denying it or forcing some other feeling. Imaginary here refers to imagination as the activating tool, which is fundamental to all acting and which truly makes us superior as an animal species. I would really love to talk about Meisner, and I could go on and on. But for today's lecture, I will discuss the technique of his teacher, the great Konstantin Stanislavski, who is otherwise known as the father of modern acting and founder of the system, as well as Stanislavski's star pupil, Michael Chekhov, who espoused the technique of psychological gestures. According to Konstantin Stanislavski, an actor must love dreams and know how to use them. This imaginary life is created at will by the help of the actor's own desire and in proportion to the creative intensity of the spiritual material he possesses or has accumulated in himself. This spiritual material refers to the actor's accumulated experiences in life, both pleasant and unpleasant. Dreams here refer to the conscious remembering of those accumulated experiences, and Stanislavski suggests a system to guide the act of remembering, transform these memories into materials for actors to use on stage. Actors following the Stanislavski system go through 3 periods of preparatory work. First is the period of study, where they first analyze a text to gather the given circumstances that may or may not be similar to the facts in the actors' lives. The actors then have to activate their imagination to create empathy for their roles. This empathy will be deepened in the second period, which is the period of emotional experience, where they allow their imagination to trigger inner impulses that will move them towards objectives that are creative enough to fire their ardor. When actors achieve the full emotional life of their characters, they have achieved the superconscious that will now be propelled into action. This superconscious must be embodied in the period of physical embodiment. Now, Michael Chekhov was a student of Stanislavski, and he built on the system by providing physical exercises that will allow the actor's body and psychology to work in harmony, especially since for Chekhov, the body is an instrument for expressing creative ideas. Chekhov requires the actors to allow their bodies to be receptive to creative impulses, which can be achieved by awakening the material body to psychological triggers. This requires a lot of courage, really. Then he requires the actors to deepen one's psychological disposition, expanding it to understand psyches other than their own. And finally, he demands that actors train in a technique that makes them harness their talent and creative impulses, rather than relying on talent to see them through a performance. Now, Stanislavski has taught many other talented actors who started their own schools. What ties all of these approaches together is the need for psychological preparation, a safe space for rehearsing physicalization, and the culmination in a performance for a live audience. Every preparation starts with engaging the breath and activating all the senses. This grounding in the moment is an act of reclaiming the body from physical and emotional detachment. Practically a norm in modern living, detachment becomes a debilitating disability when one is inflicted with trauma. So breath work and sense activation during warm-ups are both recovery and strengthening exercises that will prepare them to confront all kinds of emotions, especially the unpleasant ones, which to someone with anxiety or trauma can be very overwhelming. Now that the body is activated by the breath and the senses are receptive to the whole spectrum of stimuli, actors go through their memory bank of physical and emotional senses. This repository has a wealth of pleasant and unpleasant memories, and actors must access them through the imagination. Michael Chekhov says, "Out of the visions of the past, there are flash here and there images totally unknown to you. They are pure products of your creative imagination." To enable access to the repository of their sense memory, actors go through imagination work in a step-by-step process and in a controlled and safe environment called the theater. Every human being will have those memories that they would really rather not remember simply because they are too unpleasant. Now, people with trauma would rather not go anywhere near such unspeakable memory. But interestingly, that same unspeakable memory suddenly and without warning pops into their reality. They go into automatic thinking, they freeze, and their imagination is absolutely deactivated. Michael Chekhov believes that actors can strengthen their imagination through a set of exercises to see beyond external manifestations. The capacity to imagine is very important. Van der Kolk says, imagination gives us the opportunity to envision new possibilities. It is an essential launchpad for making our hopes come true. Without imagination, there is no hope, no chance to envision a better future, no place to go to, no goal to reach. When people with trauma engage the imagination purposefully through acting exercises, instead of letting automatic thinking take control, they are no longer trapped to the perception of facts that happened in the past. By strengthening their imaginations, they can find alternative ways to perceive the past and alternative ways to be in the present, and hopefully imagine a better future for themselves in the same way that actors do for their characters. Having engaged the imagination, actors go into rehearsal and find physical movement that brings to life the given circumstances of a character. In rehearsals, which personally is my most favorite part of acting, actors find permission to explore a full spectrum of choices that are not readily available out in the real world due to societal expectations for propriety and decorum. Rehearsals allow actors to make mistakes not allowable in real life. They can make as many mistakes as possible and be as creative as needed. Ultimately, actors rehearse how to make choices actively in space and in relation to another actor in character. With all its explorations, with scene conflicts and the possible choices individuals can make in the moment, playing becomes a rehearsal for real life, so that when one does encounter such an experience or some variation of that experience, the experiential knowledge better equips that individual to deal with it. Having rehearsed giving themselves permission to play and make mistakes, actors find a consistent way to access emotional truth and the ability to be propelled by it on stage. And this is when the actors and the rest of the artistic team, led by the director, collaboratively decide on which choices work best and how to precisely hit those marks in every performance. The performance becomes the test of strength gained during the training process of rehearsal. Actors will have to give themselves permission to feel a whole gamut of emotions, play a whole variety of psychological and physical actions with precision so that everyone can cohesively function in communicating their story. Doing this in front of a live audience is terrifying, and it's thrilling, and it's life-giving. So, as much as a performance is a test of mettle, it also has its own contribution to active healing. Performing on stage is all about being vulnerable, finding courage, and responding to the call of community. According to Brené Brown, vulnerability is uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure, and it is measured by the amount of courage to show up and be seen when you can't control the outcome. Nothing feels like vulnerability more acutely than standing in the wings, the moment right before you have to step on stage in front of a live audience. But having rehearsed and having found a place in collaboration with others, actors find the courage to step on stage because of the confidence in the rehearsal process, their trust in each other, and their need to connect with the audience. Whenever pre-show nerves threaten to render me paralyzed or even dead, I know, quite dramatic, I just remind myself that the audiences are here rooting for the show and the actors in it. They want to be entertained by people who love what they're doing. They want to connect just like the actors do. This is the objective that actors and audiences share. They want to confront a significant human experience captured in literature and expressed in a performance. And this expression, this performance, affirms and validates their own life experiences. This moment of sharing confronting, making choices, witnessing, is a moment of shared humanity. And that shared humanity is what's lacking when there's trauma and anxiety. Tina Packer states, training actors involves training people to go against that tendency, to cut ourselves off from the truth of what we're feeling, not only to feel deeply, but to convey that feeling at the every moment to the audience, so the audience will get it and not close off against it. Now, when any individual tries to do theater and tries to learn theater and they find the joy in theater, really, it's aligned with what Brené Brown states. Our job is not to deny the story, but to defy the ending, to rise strong, recognize our story, and rumble with the truth until we get to a place where we think, yes, this is what happened, but I will choose how the story ends.